Do you like that? Did you like that music?
It really made me laugh. I thought I was in a game show then. I thought I had a chance to win a car or some teas made from the 70s.
Fantastic. So anyway, everybody, do not adjust your sets. James Taylor has not been replaced. He is still in Italy. Actually, he's speaking in Rome today, and he sent some glorious photos, a beautiful hotel. So he's not suffering. And I've got Jamil Qureshi with me. Hello, Jamil. How are you?
Hi, Marianne. Great, thank you. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much. But in case there's anybody out there who has no idea who you are, which I just don't believe, Jamil is a practitioner of performance psychology. He's an expert in high-performing teams and cultural change. And what's most interesting for anybody tuning in today, he has a 7-figure speaking business. And he's maintained it in a pandemic. So we want to find out all about that. And I believe you're going to generously share some information with us, yes?
It'd be a pleasure. Yeah, your music has your music made me more open-minded. To any question you want to ask.
It's hypnotic. I've actually specifically chosen it because it's totally hypnotic. Okay, so how long ago was it that you started getting paid to speak? When was that?
Yeah, I don't know really. It's one of those things where, and you've often said it, it's best to become an expert who becomes a speaker more so than set out to be a speaker. And not that I was an expert, but I used to do a lot of psychology. And I was working with some good sports teams and some good sports people. And sport and business are intrinsically linked. And I think it was one day in Munich, actually, that I was working at a golf tournament there. And someone from BMW, so I'm the sales manager for BMW Europe. You're working with some really good golfers. Can you come and work with my sales guys? Can you come do a talk for us? And I think that's how I got into speaking. Was I started sort of working with some corporate audiences who were affiliated to the golf and cricket and football I was in at the time. And then I looked at my diary one day and I had more speaking engagements in it. And then later on, there were even more speaking engagements. I thought, I'm actually a speaker now. I seem to be speaking about my work more than I'm doing it. So I think it's very much an organic thing, which happened very quickly for me, much more so than, any good business process or sales strategy.
Your background helped you, do you think, to do that? I'm not talking about the performance background, but your business background.
Yeah, well, do you know what though? That's interesting you frame it like that, because it was my performance background which probably helped more than the business background. So, and the reason why I say that is that the business acumen was very poor on my part. It was sheer good luck. So, I'd end up working in these sports where there was lots of money. So I'd work in golf and the Premiership and things. So you can't help but make money when you're in an industry or sector or an area where there's lots of money to be made. So now that wasn't great strategy on my part. It just seemed to happen that way, as a psychologist and performance coach. And then the corporate audiences and the corporate fees for speaking, attracted me to say, well, this is also viable. I should do more of this. But it wasn't great business thinking. It was the fact that I tried some performance things out before just to test myself. I don't know how much you know this, Maria. Actually, I think you do. That when I sort of left my role in business and marketing, and I was working in the corporate world for a while, I then just went out to test myself. So I went and did different things. So I appeared at the Comedy Store. I did some magic, some mind magic. So I was doing a variety of things which put me on a stage in front of people. And it was from there, actually, I got comfortable with talking about an area that, I was passionate about, which was psychology and performance coaching. So the business area wasn't so much, my strength. It was more the fact that I tested myself in some trying circumstances, Comedy Store on a Friday night, and thought that, I quite like this bit, actually. It sort of works for me.
Fantastic. So your topic really lends itself to business, doesn't it? Is that why you chose that, or would you have spoken about performance psychology anyway?
No, again, I would have talked about something which I knew something of, and I'm not, the only thing that I really know a little about is that psychology and performance coaching piece. And so I've been fortunate enough to work with some really good sports people and some really good business teams. So it was an area I was passionate about. I was engaged with, I knew something. I could talk for an hour about that subject, so no problem. I'd take any other subject, struggle to get 10 minutes out of me, but an hour on psychology and performance coaching was fine. And so I think that, for me, it was one of the things that I was interested in. I was interested in what I had to say. And I don't mean that in any conceited manner. And it wasn't a self-interest thing. And I was interested in putting together the talks. I was interested in which areas that, you know, I found exciting to talk about. And I think that as I started to hone the content, because of my engagement with the content, I think the performance improved significantly.
That's brilliant. I love that. And I also love the fact that you're passionate about a topic that is relevant to business, because some people want to talk about a topic because they're passionate about it, but there isn't necessarily a market or an audience that it will pay. And of course, your topic is a topic that every business, everybody wants to be high performing.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, it's funny because people do ask me what's the difference between sort of, you know, coaching sports people and CEOs, and there isn't any. You know, just choose a different vehicle to express our talent, don't we? So, so whether you're a CEO or whether you're a golfer, you know, our fears, insecurities, anxieties, our dreams, desires, and wants are the same. So for me, I mean, you're right that it seemed to have a broad brush appeal, you know, where everyone wants to be better. Everyone can be better. And the difference between winning and losing is often what goes on behind the eyes. So it was a good place for me. And I think that, you know, again, I had good fortune working with some really good sports people and some high profile teams. And so people are always interested in how other people are obtaining success so that they can gain the edge. That little bit of insight, little bit of provocation, little tip, gimmick or hint, which will allow them to use their talent in a different way to which they're currently using it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, I mean, the fact that you were working with top sports people earning lots of money, you were surrounded by money. I think that may well have made it easier for you when you set your fees, because I know a lot of speakers when they're starting out struggle to set high fees and sort of come in very low and aren't able to put a proper value on it. So how did you set your fees? Did you look at the golfers and what they were winning and think, right, that's where I'm going? Where did you get your figures from in terms of your speech fee?
Yeah, so speech fee, I think I thought about value more than price. And so you think if you're speaking to sort of 300 people, or you're speaking to, you know, whoever it is, the average audience for me is around sort of 250. I think price per head, you know, I'd like to think that in an hour, you know, I could cover enough content to give something to everyone. So I just thought that I think the value that I could bring is probably worth the fee. So instead of thinking about fees, price, cost, I was really thinking in terms of investment or value. What investment do people want to make in their team? And when you think about being a speaker at an event, the event is just one thing in a marketing mix. It's an hour. So people are trying to affect something in their teams which can't be affected in a meeting alone, in a conference alone. So whenever I take a brief, I try and find out not just what's happening in the event, but what's happening in the team and the business at the moment. And then try to tailor the content to not just be relevant for the event, but to be relevant for the journey or the place in the journey that this team are on. And again, in my own mind, you know, it creates more value. So I believe that what I'm trying to do is create more worth than downloading some content in an hour, which will be relevant for that particular time, much more so than the journey that team are on.
I absolutely agree. And I mean, I've sat on many a briefing call with you when you've spoken to a client and you go in depth to really understand not just about the event, but what's going on, what's happened previously, what they're looking to achieve, really in depth about the client. And that's so important. It makes such a difference to the relationship you build.
Sorry, Maria. Yes, I say, yeah, I think that, you know, sometimes, yeah, it's really good to ask some not necessarily awkward questions, but some ambiguous questions. So a level of ambiguity behind them. I'll sometimes say, you might have heard me say to teams that, you know, what mood are they in? And the client will say, what do you mean? So, well, what mood are they in? Are they, you know, what's happening at the moment? Well, do you know what? They're not hitting their figures at the moment. And the market's a bit tricky. So, and we've got some bad news to deliver. And they start actually talking about things which are outside of the event. When they talk about the event, they'll tell you about the agenda, you know, tell you about what they're providing for the team at this moment. But what gives you a steer, and some of the nuances even in your content can be really helpful, such as, you know, it may be a difficult period at the moment for some people in your sector. Yeah, and they resonate. It works because they're thinking it is a difficult period for us at the moment. And so as soon as you can pick up on some of those nuances, some of the some of the sensitivities even, which aren't necessarily mentioned, but you can allude to them, then it can be that difference between significant rapport and simple engagement.
I like that. I'm going to use that actually when I get back from this session. I'm going to go and ask my man, what mood are you in, and see what kind of answers I get. That will be really fascinating. I think it's a great question. Great, yeah, I love good questions. So when you started out and now, did you say, right, I've got a specific target audience that I want to work with, or a specific market, or did that evolve that you ended up sort of working specifically with certain sectors or industries?
Yeah, no, for me, I try to be as broad as possible. So, so I'm a real catch-all. So if it's about psychology, so maybe it's to do with customer service, if it's to do with performing better, team dynamics, engagement, cultural change, leadership skills. If it's to do with psychology, I want to be in that space. So, and if it's pharma or banking or whatever it is, tech, I want to be in that space. So I never limited myself in the slightest. I try to be as general as possible. So I know some speakers are incredibly niche and they'll tell their story. They're alternatively, they become an expert in one aspect of business. I've tried to be as broad brush as possible so that, I can speak to, a board, on one day about mindset for strategy, and then speak to, I don't know, 1,000 warehouse operatives next day, about work-life balance. So if I can do that, two things are happening. That, one, I feel that I'm getting more business because I'm considered for more work, and secondly, I'm actually having to come up with new and different content. So it's keeping me versatile and keeping me fresh, because the audiences and sectors are different. So it forces you to replenish. It forces you to come up with new jokes or new humor, or new positioning, or new evidence. So sometimes I might use the same principle for a board, use the same principle for a group of salespeople, but you might want to evidence them differently or bring them to life differently, because you want them to resonate and connect in a way which is relevant to that audience.
Excellent. I love that. And we've got a couple of people here. Tom Morley is here, and we have another Facebook user. So they're waving at us and saying, yes, Tom likes the question as well. What mood are they in? He likes that. So I am really glad to hear you've got some new jokes, Jamil, because, I think it's needed.
Do you know what? I remember, I am one for recycling old humour. I am, Maria, I admit it. But I remember, I can't actually, did I say I remember? I can't remember who it was. I think Ray Davis was asked about playing his old songs. I said, you play the old songs that, sort of 40, 50 years old, these songs. He said, well, you know what? He said, whenever I play these songs, I play them brilliantly, because I think there's someone in the audience who's never heard them before. So I played it to one person who's never heard it before. And in a way, it's good advice. That, don't get me wrong, when I say it forces to replenish, we are all forced to replenish, be it with humour or content, or the way in which we present even. And we've all had to do that significantly with a change to virtual. But, I often think there's some ideas and some principles that, that I sometimes think that some of these things are well worth hearing. And the amazing thing as well, Maria, is that the amount of people who have asked me back to do a talk. And I said, okay, is the audience the same or different to last time? I said, it's 70% of them the same. I said, okay, well, let's do something different then. I said, no. If you could do the same, because 30% haven't heard it, but the other 70%, you know what? I think they need to hear it again. And I've actually had that a few times and then people say to me that, although it's the same ideas and same principles, I picked up something different this time. And I actually picked up on something that I didn't pick up the first time. And I think that, again, I put in lots of content, so I try and make my talk really content rich. So it's probably too much for people to remember. That's why that's why they pick up on some different things. And also, because I don't use slides and don't write anything down, all my talks are slightly different anyway. So I can't necessarily replicate word for word what I did yesterday, and I tend to make it up as I go along, but it heads in a general direction in accordance to the brief. So so I think that, because of the fact that there's some good, there's a good amount which is dynamic and made up, I think that there's probably enough differences for people to hear the same talk, but hear something different in it.
Yeah, no, true, absolutely. And I've heard your speeches time and time again, and I love them. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course I've got to say that, haven't I? You're here, but it's true. It's
You can
true.
be a
It's true.
stand-in. If anything happens to me, you can be a stand-in. So
I can't. I couldn't deliver that. I couldn't deliver a couple of the jokes, I don't think. So listen, what does your business consist of in terms of products and services? What is in your speaking business apart from speeches?
Yeah, so I do speeches. That's what I do, and I do them virtually or I do them physically, and they're slightly different. Most people virtually want half an hour talking and half an hour Q&A. That's what I found. When you speak physically in person, people want 50 minutes to an hour speaking, and not really the Q&A. So that's probably my standard fare. But I do workshops as well, which are 2 or 3 hours long. I do them virtually or physically. I do a lot of consultancy. So in the last 18 months, there's quite a lot of companies who have retained my services to work with them to deliver what I call leadership in a new context. And leadership in a new context is all about how we can optimize our own potential and that of the people we manage and lead and work with now that the work environment has changed significantly. Now that the context and world that we're all working in has changed significantly. Some people say leadership is leadership, and so therefore there's no new skills. I don't think that's true. And I think that we need to be providing something different to create even more value than what we created before as a leader, now that things have changed for our teams. So workshops, seminars, talks, development programs, all of that space. And again, for me, Maria, which one do I like the most? I couldn't tell you. I think I like the variety. So it's quite nice to be doing different stuff because again, it just tests you in different directions, really. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's clever about your business, your speaking business, and I actually it's genius. So you may not know that I think that this is genius. Let me share it with you. So you obviously schedule in your speeches, whether they are virtual, in person. You schedule in your masterclasses, your workshops,
Yes.
etc., and then you fit your consultancy around it. So
Yes.
you don't book that in a long time in advance. You might have a certain number of days each month or whatever, and you book them in knowing that the lead time is too short for a speech, most likely. Although, let's say in the pandemic that has changed for sure, but it means that you are working as many days as possible in the year. You are a bit of a workaholic, though. I would say.
I do. I work all the time. Yeah, and so, but I love it. I genuinely enjoy it. I wanted to find somewhere I could chase my passion more than my pension. I want to be energetic in what I do. It's part of what makes you successful as a speaker is genuinely enjoying it. I always say about JFK. If you watch JFK's speeches, JFK had a chronic back issue, so he was actually on painkillers for most of his adult life. But you wouldn't know it. And the reason why you wouldn't know it is that when you see him speak, you would think there is no place he would rather be than speaking to that audience. And for me, that's how I want to be every time I'm on stage. I don't want to do a good job. I want to do an amazing job. I want to do the best thing that everyone's seen, everyone in the audience has seen. And that's my number one goal, is to be the best that people have seen on that day. If I can deliver it on that day and people say, yes, that was amazing, I know I'm going to get more business. So for all the marketing in the world, all the changes to your website, all the Twitter and LinkedIn stuff, the key is to do an amazing job when you get a chance to do it. So if you do an amazing job, blow people away, you are guaranteed more business. So, my business model has always been about do the best possible delivery, and that's been number one for me, and number one thing. And then in the time that I've got around that, I'm really happy to do consultancy. And because the consultancy, isn't booking a hotel and booking flights, it's often working with a leadership team, or working with a sales team or management team of some sort. It's been fairly easy to get people together around some dates in the next 2 or 3 weeks where we can spend 2 hours virtually or 2 hours physically. And that's worked out quite nicely, really, particularly working on a retained basis with clients, where we can spend 2 days a month together, and then we can decide on when those 2 days are between us. And hopefully that will fit around, some of the engagements that I've got elsewhere.
And I love the retained model that you have, the retainer model, in that you retain a certain number of clients for a certain period of time. So basically you've got you've got a guaranteed level of income before you then add all the bookings on top.
Yeah, I think what's nice for speakers, I'm very lucky because I'm so busy, which is great, as you well know. But I think for speakers who perhaps aren't so busy, there's a nice little bit of security with having some retained clients, and you can do speeches at a particular fee. And you can do some retained work. So I'm going to work with you over the next 3 months, your leadership team, and I'm going to charge a minimal fee, a nominal fee. And, so it's not the same as my speaking fee. It's going to be less than that. But I'm going to give you a certain amount of time, which is not standing on a stage and prepping, but I'm going to be working with your team on a particular issue or a particular goal or outcome. And that's quite nice if you're looking at keeping a momentum to your earnings and a consistency, and then hopefully spiking it or adding to it with some speaking engagements. For me, it works brilliantly because I've worked with a lot of clients for a long time now, so they know me. And they're used to paying a speaking fee for me, and I've said to them that, look, you pay a speaking fee for me. At this stage where, and this happened 18 months ago, is when I first started working like this, although I should have done it before. You're going through change. I'll handhold your teams through the change as much as I can for another fee. And so let's say it's going to be about 2 days a month, and together we'll work out when that's going to be. A couple of hours here, a few hours there. But you just pay a flat rate. You just pay a retainer for me, and we'll work it out as we go along. So it's kept flexibility on both parts. It's kept people more engaged in the one-off or transactional speaking engagement. So I've been able to, actually work with teams over a period of time. People have quite liked the idea of having someone alongside them in terms of that medium or long haul, particularly if it's someone that they've seen speak on stage and they've engaged with the material and the content and the speaker. So once there's that goodwill there, it's been even easier to work with some of these people in this sort of smaller way, but a more consistent approach to driving change in the organizational team.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win for the client and the people, and it's a win-win for you. And yes, we definitely should have done it earlier than 18 months ago.
Yeah, when you think about it, Maria, because we weren't thinking sort of virtual, 18 months ago, but the amount of speaking engagements that I was getting, let's say sort of 3-4 years ago, physical engagements. If I did a physical engagement in, I don't know, Dubai or Singapore or wherever, for 500 people, what we could have done is that say, okay, well, he's come and done an hour for you. It's gone down well. The feedback's been great. How do you feel about 3 follow-up sessions, but are virtually? These are 3 virtual sessions, so therefore it's nowhere near the fee of going to Singapore or Dubai. And any one of the 500 can just dial into it. I'm going to make it an accessible time, and then maybe 100 people dial into it, 200 people dial into it, whoever. But I'm going to give you 3 more sessions, I don't know, bi-weekly, for the next 6 weeks. I think it's quite a nice value add. If they're paying for you to go business class to Singapore, paying for the fee, paying for the hotel, and then paying a minimal fee for you to keep the content alive or deep dive it specifically with an audience for 6 weeks afterwards, I think that's great value. And let's come back to the value more so than the price. I actually think it's great value.
I think it's a wonderful service, great value. It keeps you in the client's, part of the
Why are we discussing this now? Should discuss. Yeah.
But also it means you then have opportunities for more work with the client. So listen, tell me, Jamil, where does your work come from? Is it from repeat? Is it from bureaus? Is it from your own outreach? Where do your bookings come from?
So I haven't worked this out. I never do any figures, so I don't know, and I never do figures. So never. But I would say it's definitely changed. But I would say that half come from bureaus and half come from direct inquiries. But I think there's an amazing amount come from people who've seen me speak. So even when bureaus come to me and say, "Will you speak for so and so?" I thought I spoke for them only a few months ago. So it's clearly someone else in the organisation who has been, either had me recommended or has seen I've spoken for them, then come to me after getting a recommendation. Or it's an organisation I've done loads of work with before, and so therefore I may have spoken to a particular stakeholder in the audience who has now been promoted and got some budget and wants to bring in a speaker. So I think that although half is direct and half is through bureau, I would say a really good percentage is through reputation. I hate to say that because it sounds a bit grandiose, but I do think that what people want is reliability. They want a safe pair of hands. And, I want to put someone in. I want to pay some money for someone to come up and do a great job. And I think if you're a little bit this could go either way, then I think it's tricky as a speaker. I think that you need to consistently deliver. So if you're consistently delivering, and bureaus trust you, and safe pair of hands, we know you can put you out there, you're going to come back with some great feedback. I think clients will hear about it and so therefore want to use you.
Excellent. So actually, I want to talk about bureaus a bit more. I know a little bit about that subject. So you work with several bureaus and they book you regularly, and you're highly booked by bureaus, which is not an easy thing to do. What do you think is the secret of your success? Obviously, it's the delivery, but how did you get your foot in the door to some of these bureaus? Did you knock their doors down or did you kick their dogs?
No, I know, none of those things. They don't work. From our personal experience, they don't work. No, you know what? I waited for bureaus to come to me more than else. I literally approached 2 or 3 bureaus. Away from that, if you have a look at if you Googled me now, you'll see that I'm on lots of bureaus, but I haven't spoken to most of those bureaus. So those sort of bureaus, one booked me the other day, actually last week. I've never really worked with them before, but they've booked me because they put me on their books. I don't know how I feel about that. It's a long conversation, and we can probably have now. But I think that again, it's a small world. Speaking is a small world, incredibly fragmented market, and there's lots of speakers and there's lots of events and lots of bookers. But it's a small world in regard to reputation, incredibly small. So I think that once you start doing great work and a lot of work, you can't help but be mentioned. And so, because I hear the same names, so people say to me that, we were going to book you last year, but we booked so and so instead. It's the same names. We're going to book you for this year because we had so and so last year. It's the same names every time. So I think it's a small world, and I think that when people hear you mentioned with other people who they have booked, they'll be interested in you. So I've had agents and bureaus come to me saying, "Can we put you on our books?" Or you've been recommended to do a talk for our client. Can we recommend you? So a client has gone to the agency saying, "Can you get that speaker?" So I think a mix of both. I think it's great to be proactive, and I think you should absolutely speak to bureaus, not just to get onto the books, but to find out about the market, find out about what's happening. So they're good conversations to be had where you can have them. So have as many as you can. But it's great if a bureau is interested in you, because then you don't sit passively on their books, but they proactively look to do something with you because they are the ones who have committed to working with you because they approached you first, or at least there was some sort of connection rather than just cold calling an agency.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And the reference to the dog is a joke between us because when we first met, of course, my doggy barked at you. He hasn't ever since. It's true. Well, you're very tall and he's very small. So if you had to start again in your speaking business, would you do anything different, or would you build it in the same way as you had previously?
Do you know what, Maria? Honestly, I've been amazingly lucky. So my business is incredibly successful. It's substantially more successful than I could ever have imagined. I'm really lucky, and there was no science behind it. I fell into it. I still feel as though I'm falling into it. There's all sorts of stuff, and this is why I phone you so often. There's all sorts of stuff that I don't know, and things surprise me all the time. It's not a career path like a doctor or an accountant or a dentist, or, it's not as though, you have your education, you go into speaking, and then you get promoted to the next level. It's not like that. It's the Wild West. So, you learn it as you go along. The key is to be open-minded, and the key is to keep thinking about what you're doing. realize the value that you can create for others, stay connected, make sure there are good partnerships and networks, and make sure that you understand from a three-dimensional perspective the world that you're in, and concentrate on great content and great delivery. So would I do anything different? I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't do anything different. And I think for two reasons. That one, if it ain't broke, I'd be too scared to break it. And the other thing is that, I think that everything that's happened has happened, good and bad, has happened at the right time for me. So, I've done business with some people who have been awful. I've done some dreadful gigs. I've took jobs that I shouldn't have taken. I've done all those things, and I'll keep on doing them. So I wouldn't necessarily refine it. I'm a firm believer that, everything that's happened to date has enabled me to do what I do now. And I'm really happy doing what I'm doing now. So it's a bit like a sales chart, you see these ups and downs. And if the general progress is upwards, then I think we should be happy.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So listen, Nat, you've given us lots and lots and lots of value. I wonder if you have a tip to share with our audience as well.
Yeah. So top tip, take doggy treats to any booker with a dog, and win them over through their animal. And apart from that, I think act as if is a great one. I think as speakers, I don't know about the people watching this, maybe it's just me, we can be incredibly insecure. One of the reasons why I get so much content in, and you've always told me off for it, I always get so much content in, I speak fast and put tons in, is because I really want to be valued. I want everyone to like me and get something from it. It's my insecurity, which means that I speak so much in my hour, that I want 200 or 300 people in the audience and everyone says, I took something away from that. But you would, because you talked about everything for an hour. But so that was my insecurity. Act as if is a really good little technique to pull us speakers away from the fragility of our egos. And act as if is all about imagining that you are it now to become it. So let me give you an example. If I was thinking, if I was the most energetic speaker, everyone knows I'm the most energetic speaker. What would my presentation look like? And then you think about it, and it gives you some clues into how you can increase the energy in your presentation. Or if I was the best at listening to a brief, so everyone knows on the speaking circuit, I'm #1 for taking a brief. I'm great at listening to briefs, fully understanding them. If I was, how would I organize this brief? What questions would I be asking? How would I be positioning my content? What would I be listening out for? And how would I be feeling? What would I be thinking? What would I be saying and doing? If I was #1 for taking a brief fully. And so play the game in relation to your business, and think about some things contextually from thinking outside of yourself that you might do differently. So, if I was #1 at prospecting and winning business, how would I use LinkedIn? And if I was #1 for selling myself, how would I do it? And so this act as if, thinking about if you were it now, what would you be doing, allows you to become it, because it does give you a little bit of insight, or it gives you some clues.
I love act as if. We have a question. The question is, which speaker inspires you?
Oh, it's a really weird thing, but I don't really watch many speakers. And that's the problem. Is that sometimes people say, "I watch you watch speakers because you learn your craft." I'm not sure really. I tend not to watch speakers, even when on the same bill as me. I tend not to watch them because I try and make speaking my own. But if I was to pull some speakers off the top of my head who I think are very good, Casper Berry is great. Casper's a different speaker to me, and he uses lots of slides, and he's very polished, and he's very slick in his presentation, so he's really good. So Casper's excellent. Tom Morley, brilliant. I know he's on the call, and I'm not just saying it for that reason. His energy is immense, and so he can move an audience from sad to happy in 3 minutes. So and that's an incredible ability, is to change people's mood. James Taylor, who you know very well, is a super speaker. And one more for you.
We need a lady in there. We need a lady.
Okay, yeah. I'll tell you what. Let me. Do you know what? I'll tell you do. I like Claire Lomas and I like Penny Mallory. Those two are excellent and really good. I think the thing for me is that, be it people's backgrounds, be it people's gender, I think that, anyone can be a great speaker. And I think that anyone can be right for the event. It does take a good agent, good booker, good briefing, to make the connection, which is needed to make all parties work together in a way which truly delivers an ROO. We often talk about ROI, but ROO is that return on objective. There's a reason why you book a speaker. There's a reason why you go and speak at an event, and it really is to try and create something which is bigger and better, than what would be created if that speaker, wasn't there.
Fantastic. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, either to book you to speak, they can reach you on your LinkedIn profile or at your website, which is jamilqureshi.com. And I'm going to leave a little tip myself, actually. So we've been talking about getting more paid speaking gigs and how you've done it and achieved it in your business. If you want to go to speakingbusinessacademy.com, there is a download on there, how to get more paid speaking gigs, with lots of content that will help you, much of which Jamil has done, been there and done it. So Jamil, thank you very much indeed. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. I always do with you, Maria. Did we get the music to end as well, or is it just a teaser?
Oh my goodness! Of course, you get the music to end as well. Let's do that too.
Turn the camera off. I can dance to it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you.